So this is what the CMOR dashboard looked like as of this morning, when I've chosen to show just reports from Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico for the year to date. Each of the dots on the map is a report that someone submitted. The timeline at the bottom shows when reports have come in, and the default view includes a layer with the latest US Drought Monitor map, because the Drought Monitor is what drives a lot of interest in CMOR reporting, especially because of the Drought Monitor's use as a trigger for the livestock forage disaster program. So I'm going to focus more today on why to use CMOR than on how to use CMOR, because the how is fairly straightforward. And if you're interested, there's quite a bit of documentation on the CMOR landing page that you're seeing now. But before we get to the why, I will address the top two FAQs on the how side. Yes, CMOR reporting works on a phone. It uses Esri's Survey 123 app, and the observations and photos appear immediately on various interactive maps and dashboards. And secondly, yes, it collects and displays photos. This is what it looks like, same view as before, only I've filtered it to only show reports with photos. These images are from someone who tells us that they're also a CoCoRaHS observer in Sandoval County, just north of Albuquerque. So the why question is a little bit more complicated. Why to use CMOR? It comes down to whether people feel like it's a good use of their time, and that depends on how state and national drought assessment teams are using it. Observations and photos are automatically shared on the map, immediately visible to everyone, including anyone involved in assessing drought, and they become part of a permanent archive. So the information actually gets further and is more accessible to more people than if it's just put in an email or a phone call. It's a fully transparent process and fairly efficient in terms of the initial information gathering and sharing being put to wide use. It is important to note that we at the Drought Center are not out independently recruiting observers from different states. The system is certainly publicly available on the internet, but our experience strongly suggests that the vast majority of observations come from a local or state organized effort, and we can see that different states want to use it differently. In 2018, for example, farmers and ranchers in Missouri were having a really tough time due to several factors, including a late spring freeze followed by a summer drought. The Missouri state climatologists, state agencies, and even the Cattlemen's Association got together and launched what they called a media blitz to get as many reports as they could, partly so that they would have more spatial detail about where it was dry. Pat Gannan, the state climatologist, then used those reports and also climate data in his recommendations to Drought Monitor authors that year. In Georgia in 2019, the state climatologist's office and others who get phone calls from farmers and ranchers directed callers to the CMOR form, partly because they could take in more information that way than doing it one phone call at a time, and it got shared more widely. The Georgia Cattlemen's Association, again, also helped publicize the opportunity to report. Sorry, technical glitch with my script here. And the CMOR reports were just one source of data that got fed into all the considerations that go into the US Drought Monitor map, but they did provide a voice for farmers and ranchers and a very efficient way to turn many voices into one map layer. North Dakota's approach in 2021 was a little bit different. They have a well-organized network of extension range specialists, which is organized by Miranda Meehan, if some of you might know her. Their state climatologist, Adnan Akuz, partnered with Miranda in 2021 as the state was going into drought to get range specialists to submit weekly reports. And I made a presentation, did a detailed how-to walkthrough with them, and did a lot of troubleshooting over the course of the season. We actually learned a lot through that. So in 2021, a relatively small number of North Dakota extension specialists submitted more than half of all of the reports we received that year. And there were several instances where Adnan combined information that the observers provided with other data in his recommendations to the US Drought Monitor authors. I think it's also really interesting to note that the pattern of these reports you can see on the timeline at the bottom is very different. The Mondays are those spikes, because that's when they ask for the reports by Monday at noon every day, every week in North Dakota. And they were getting, between 30 and 40 reports per week during the growing season. And Oregon Forestry was also successful in 2021 with getting the public to use a tailor-made version of the survey. And I can talk to you more about how to tailor the survey for your state, but that is a separate conversation. So it's apparent that people tend to submit observations more during transition times. And even when they want to, sometimes even when they want to protest what the drought monitor is saying. But the fact that people have an incentive to submit a report doesn't necessarily make the information in the report wrong, but it does suggest we need a way to assess credibility. So one way is to compare CMOR reports and CocoRa's reports. The CMOR report timeline on the top, you can see they're bunched up in September and October, whereas CocoRa's are more nicely spread through the year. But the CMOR reports literally cover more ground. There are more of them in more different locations. One of the questions on the CMOR report form is the same 7-point dry to wet scale that CocoRa's condition monitoring reports use. And so we are displaying CMOR, the CMOR layer. It's easy to display in different places. We also display it along with the CocoRa's reports on our drought impacts multi-tool. It's this is a very experimental tool that actually lets you combine a lot of stuff. But the default view compares CMOR and CocoRa's reports because they're kind of like cousins, and it's logical for a lot of reasons to compare them. So I'll just show you a few quick highlights. Whoops. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Here's where somebody in Southern Nevada took the time to submit before and after photos, which is a really good use of photos. You can also drill down to display an individual impact checked off within a sector. In this case, within the public health sector, someone has checked off air quality. So these are all the reports that mention air quality. And these are all the reports that say that range conditions are poor to very poor. You can animate the progress of the drought monitor maps and reports over time. You can filter for specific words. And there is an attribute table at the bottom that lets you do other custom queries and download CSVs. So that is my flash talk on what CMOR reports are all about. Thank you.